So we are here today with the writing team for Effed Up Fairy Tales from the 1001 Minutes of New Musicals at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, produced by New Musicals, Inc. I have the composer here next to me, David Jayden Anthony, and joining us from Phoenix, Arizona via Zoom is Jasmine, who wrote the book and lyrics. And I'd like to talk, I'd love to start first, guys, by talking a little bit about your background with NMI. You both talked about this for your other projects, but just in case someone hasn't seen those two interviews, because you both did two shows for Fringe. But let's talk about how you came to NMI, when you went through core, and how you eventually found each other to start this project together. Grace, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. Well, I wanted to find an outlet for my musical theater, so I actually just did a Google search to find NMI the first time. I didn't have any referral. I just came in blind, but it seemed like it would be just totally perfect for me. So I actually submitted lyrics from a musical I wrote decades ago, and that was how I submitted to get accepted. But it worked good enough, so I began and started my core. I did my core like 3 years ago, actually, so it was the 2014 season. And I wrote a musical called The Lover, A Tale of Obsessive Love. I believe we were doing Can't Get Enough that season, so everybody had something on that, that sort of that theme. And
a story of addiction, right? Yes. Addiction.
Yeah, we had our poster with the French fries, so I thought that was pretty good. I worked with Ron Barnett, and so he and I did the music. Actually, I did lyrics and book, and he did music. So it was an awesome experience, and I think that one of the things I had mentioned before that I liked so much about the process was I had no contacts in the musical theater world at all at that point, and so it was really good for me to come in and get a community. And so I think it was super important for me to have the chance in our core program. Everyone gets a chance to work with a new team each month, and so in this case I got a chance to meet new people each and every time, and in my case I really needed to meet and network with composers, and so I found that was a very super positive experience. So that's how I came to NMI, and then the way I got involved in Fringe was you guys obviously sent out the call for writers that you wanted to see if we had an interest. I jumped at it because I had always wanted to be involved in Fringe. And then finding David was a strange and interesting process. Because there he was, his shining presence in the Zoom, and he had his little picture up there when we had our Zoom meeting, one of the first times, and I just liked him. And I thought, so I started to private message him this or that question, or hi, how are you, and all this. I don't know, I stopped him immediately, and then said, would you consider working with me? And so I just had a gut feeling about it. It was one of those things I thought, I'd heard that name and I thought, gosh, he seems nice. And so I reached out.
Fantastic. What about you, David?
I did my core year in 2012, and then I took a break from writing for a while, and I really wanted to get back in, and the 20-minute platform was the best thing to jump back in and just attack it. So I had thought if I don't find any collaborators, I may not do the Fringe thing, and 2 sets of writers came out of nowhere. So that was very, very exciting. And they both listened to SoundCloud rough demo recordings and they said, let's go.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I remember you guys started working on your story, Effed Up Fairy Tales, and I remember one of the first times that you were presenting during our workshop here in the space, that you were living out of town at the time in Riverside. Is that where you were? Or
in Rancho Cucamonga.
In Rancho Cucamonga, and Grace, of course, is in Phoenix. But you both came in for one of those workshops, and it was the first time you'd met, even though you'd already been writing for a while together. And it was and you were so excited to see each other. It was insane.
It was really fun.
Yeah, you talked about how you felt like you were, maybe siblings split at birth or something. So talk about how all that came
Grace
about.
thought it was a little weird that she wanted to dig right into the writing, and I'm like, no, let's just talk and get to know each other. And we did a bunch of conversations about life and whatever. I just wanted to be on the same page with this lovely human before, and it actually, as we went through the process, I think there's a lot of conversations we didn't have to have because we started to know each other so well. So there's certain things I could probably tell you what she would respond with, and that's very helpful when you're working separately in isolation, kind of, and I'm working through things, and it's late at night. I'm not going to call her. I kind of know where she's coming from things. So.
Oh, fantastic. So talk.
But I got to be late at night, and I would call you.
There's that
so
too.
Suddenly there were no boundaries, and I'd be, 2 in the morning, I really need to say something. So that's very, very deep friendship very quickly. So.
That's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about how you came up with the idea for Effed Up Fairy Tales? What made you guys decide on that arena and theme, and what you were trying to say to your audience with that piece?
I can kind of start. David is an unusual person because many composers don't really care about their involvement in the initial idea, but what's really fun about David is he likes to be in on the idea phase. And so that was fun for us, and we had, conversations about, what should it be? What will be interesting? And we really sat down and had like a 2-hour Skype call where we were just batting around ideas and trying to come up with something. And we came upon this idea because we like the whole aspect of, in Effed Up Fairy Tales, there's this dysfunction, and yet it's got a Disney feel, and it's got all these things that kind of spoke to us. And so we just kind of batted around ideas until we found something. And then one of the things that I did that I think you might remember is then we were trying to figure what our storyline was, and I did sort of 7 different options that we might choose from, and we sort of batted around, how it could go. So that was sort of at least the process on my end.
I said, I don't care. Let's just have them all start in a bar.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, and I know, so the process as you were bringing stuff into workshop, I know the show morphed through a lot of different phases, and characters came and went, and things got shifted around, and you guys were very hands-on in the in the whole process. Can you talk about what that was like, getting yourself to that final draft, and then after that having to deal with the fact that your show was a little too long and you had to then go back in and hack at it? Can you talk about how all that worked out?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
Okay, I'll start. We had a couple of things going that made our situation different and interesting. David was incredibly busy because he's somebody that has many, many projects, and he was extremely busy. And so there was, we were dealing with that as far as our collaborative process. That was a big part of it. But as far as storyline and how we went back and forth on script and things like that, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but in early draft we had Toad in it, and we were doing sort of a Weekend at Bernie's thing, and we had a dead guy. And, it was so far from what we ended up with. And I remember Elise in an early coming back to me thing, he said, well, I don't know about the dead guy. Maybe we should, one of these things. I tend to want to put a dead guy in every show.
Because there was one in Sybil's closet. Yeah, there was one in Sybil's closet in the first draft as well, right?
A dead body on stage. So who knew? But the refining process, one of the things I think is so fascinating about working with NMI, and then also working with you, Elise, obviously, is you're a hell of a dramaturge and you've got awesome ideas. So the process for me as a writer, going back and forth in here's a draft, what do you think? Here's a draft, what do you think? Not only through the collaborative workshop, but then also the one-on-one. We honed and honed and honed and honed, and then we ended up with that 30-minute show, which I think was an awesome show, but 10 minutes long of a show.
Yes. And
so then it was kind of like, now I have to slice arms and legs off the body of this baby, and it was very trying. But I think one of the things that you and I had said over time is that it really made me a better writer, and it made me more brutal about the process of, is this can this be cut? What is the essence? What is the nut in each sentence? What is the thing where we win, and the awesome part of that sentence? And so it forced us to be very, very careful with what we were doing. Also, we wanted to protect the beautiful songs. So the way it was kind of running down was we had these gorgeous songs, and David is a totally brilliant composer. And so we were trying to tighten, make the script very, fit, basically. And then if we had to do anything to a song, we actually had to cut a little part of one song, so it was a condensing process that taught me a lot.
Yeah, and I have to say, and I've told you this before, Grace, that I thought your attitude about that was really tremendous. You didn't, you didn't whine or complain or get cranky. You just said, this has to be done. I know it has to be a 18 to 20 minute show, and there are no options there. And so I'm just going to dig in and make it the best show I can and figure out where's the heart of the show and make sure that it works. So your process and made it easier for everybody else too, that you took that on.
Yeah. Well, I think, one thing, David is a very easy person to work with, and you can say, gosh, my heart's broken, then we have to cut this and that and the next thing. And he's very consoling and very, has a positive, you come back with this sort of like, well, here's why this will work, or here's why we should feel happy about this. Or, and that helped me a lot of times when I would be sad that something was happening that we had to cut. I was like, so there were those consoling sorts of conversations we sometimes had. So.
Yeah. I remember a conversation that we had earlier on where when you were in the process of still writing it and hadn't gotten to the first draft yet, and you had gotten a bunch of feedback about moving things around and shifting things and maybe cutting a character, and a lot of really sort of structurally impactful ideas. And you had talked about that your first response to that was I don't know, but then you sort of dove into it wholeheartedly. You were talking about that at one point, David.
Yeah, well, I said every time we do what Elise says, we get the best results. Let's just roll with it. I mean,
we are team Elise.
100%.
Sure.
So, and what's the hurt in just trying to make those changes and then seeing what you come up with? It's not like you don't have the other copy sitting there. So
That's true. That's a really great attitude.
Right.
You can always go back if you decide you like what you had before better.
Right.
Great. So you finally got your show, you hacked it to bits to get it down to 18 to 20 minutes, and then you put it in the hands of your cast, who were tremendous, I think. So how did that feel, the rehearsal process of seeing it come alive under the direction of Dennis McCord with your awesome cast and getting it in front of an audience? What was that experience like for you two?
My first rehearsal that I came to was sort of late in the process, and I had to use all of my acting skills to not just sit and cry when I heard them sing. I couldn't believe we had such an amazing cast.
Cry in a good way.
Oh, it was lovely. It was so lovely and so sincere, even in the rehearsal process, the sincerity that those actors brought. And there were casting challenges. We lost characters, but it didn't, and I told Grace when we lost our king, and Grace was not happy about it at first, and I said, you know what? I believe that we're going to end up with the people we're supposed to have. And even though the take on that character was completely different, it was equally brilliant.
Yeah.
It just took everybody a minute to go, this is the king now.
Different, yeah, and I think that's a really good lesson, isn't it? To learn that even though you really love something that one performer does, someone else can bring something else to it, and it's amazing. And you guys did have, all of the shows had some challenges that, and that always happens when you're doing a fringe show, that sometimes actors aren't able to continue with the piece. Your king was just as unhappy to have to leave as you were to lose him.
Right.
But as you say, it worked out. You got a different king who was every bit as good in his own way.
Who got all the laughs. I mean, from the material and what he brought, it was great. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dennis was very, very helpful in this, because Dennis sort of had the attitude, hang on tight, because we're going to, this will be a bumpy ride, and we're going to lose some people, gain some people, so just be ready for it. Because after I don't know if you remember of course you do, because you were making all of the casting happen, but you remember we lost an individual who felt offended by what was being said in the script.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And so I talked to Dennis about that. He goes, you know what, honey? He goes, if you're ruffling feathers, you're doing it right. And so I thought, that was great. But then, of course, he didn't have to do your part of finding the person the next day. So.
Well, we all pulled together with the casting to try and work it all out. We had over 60 actors to cast in all the shows, so it was a challenge, definitely. But I think we came up with a great cast at the end of the day for Effed Up Fairy Tales, and your audiences absolutely embraced the show and loved it to pieces. So I think that was
One of the cool parts for me was writing my first gay love song, believe it or not.
With a straight woman.
Yeah, well, and I didn't realize that to be the case until the song was done, and I had made a demo and sent it to her and played it back, and then I found myself more attached to it immediately. Usually there's a period where you may not like it because it's fresh or whatever. immediately when it was done, I was very connected, and then it was like so obvious why.
I have to tell a little story about David. When he wasn't done with it, he had like the first 16 bars, and we were in Zoom after a meeting. He goes, "This is what I've got so far." He just jumped on his piano, he's singing into this Skype cam, and it was so beautiful that I burst into tears. It was like one of these moments where he's like, "Do you like it? Do you like it?" And I'm like, I'm bawling because it was so poignant when he created to go with those words that I just felt like we had that, the thing we're here for, which is that moment of magic. And I really feel like one of the reasons I love David and love working with him is I get so many of those moments of magic, which is why you're here anyway in theater. So thank you for those moments of magic.
Well, those moments come directly from your lyric.
Oh.
So
There you go.
Well, it's a love fest.
So there's a little love fest going on
Yes,
here between
yes.
David and Grace, and I understand that you guys are actually already working on a new project together.
yes, we
We
are.
are. We have a full length.
And
You're
David,
gonna
you were
be very
Grace.
entrenched in this.
Yeah, you probably haven't heard this yet, Grace, but I think, David, you should confess what you were telling me earlier about how easy it was for you to agree to that compared to past situations when Grace sent you the script.
Well,
Yes, tell me.
I said the 20-minute musical that we did was not a very large commitment, so working with two new teams was not a problem. However, that was enough time to fall in love with you as a collaborator, and so when I read your script, it was the easiest time I ever had jumping into a full length. I have not one reservation in committing all of that time and energy into it. I'm so excited about it.
I am too.
So there you
And the
go.
funny thing is, David is a very busy person. To get him to sit down and read a script, is the biggest flattering thing that can ever happen to you. And he actually texted me. He's like, "I read your script." And I was like, "Whoa!" It took me a while to regroup in order to respond.
Well, the running joke is there were some scenes in the script that I hadn't read because I was on a
In
timeline
our script, in
Effed Up Fairy Tales. So I was reading what pertained to that song that I needed to create. So there was a moment that was so funny on opening night that I was like, "Grace, that's really funny. You're good
I
at
know,
this."
of course.
And then Dennis hit me over here.
Actually, because of the way we were so busy and we were writing songs, midnight the night before the deadline. Actually, I heard new music on opening night too, so I sat by each other like, "This is good."
Wow. Okay. Well, that's what happens when you're on a short timeline, as you say.
Yes.
Hopefully that won't happen
I
on your
have to cut
full-length
that part
project.
out.
No, no.
Edit.
Great. Well, guys, I'd love to ask you both a question that we've been asking everybody that we've been interviewing. And Grace, I've asked you this question already, so I'll let you go first so that David has
Okay.
some time to think about it. We've been asking everybody the fantasy question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly you had at your disposal $100 million that you could earmark for the development of new musicals, yours, other people's, whatever, how would you want to spend that money? Grace, do you want to kick it off?
First, I did think about this yesterday. So $100 million, I specified, I checked with the lease to make sure it was really $100 million. So the first thing we do is, David, you and I go to Broadway. We hire Elise and the team to help us get there. We all go to Broadway as one big happy family, and we bring our full length. So that's the first thing. But then some of the other stuff I talked about was supporting other artists and maybe doing some sort of a college scholarship or some sort of thing where you actually get there and you actually make it possible for really talented people in the musical theater to do what they do. So that would be something altruistically I'd like to give. And then the other thing I want to do is, if I have $100 million, I'm going to have an annual endowment to NMI, because this is where we got everything that we have, right? And so I'd like to just make sure NMI is totally supported. So that would be another thing I would do. So that's my
Thank you.
$100 million.
Thank you
Oh,
so
and
much.
cocktails for all. That's it.
So Grace has already taken care of NMI. What would you do with your money, David?
Well, and I feel the same as Grace about a lot of these kind of things, but I think I would not produce a show right away, and I would use that money to make more money so that I could be
That's smart.
going on forever.
Because 100 million is not as much as you think.
No, and
Wow.
but investing properly could make a long-term funnel to do as many shows as you want, because it's like asking the genie for more wishes.
Yes.
So-
Smart
That's
move.
very smart.
And then I've always worked in education, so of course, doing something to foster the next generation I would maybe find a way to create workshops where the Broadway composers are specifically nurturing the next generation of composers. Get Lin-Manuel Miranda or any of the giants out there right now to do summer camps that specifically where young people, high school and college, would write shows over the summer and produce them on some level.
Wow, yeah, that would be great, and would secure all of our futures.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, to wrap up, guys, I'd love it if you would each take a moment to think about if you had the opportunity to give just a little bit of advice to the writers who are working now on the musicals of tomorrow. Maybe some advice that you would have liked to have gotten yourself, or that you've learned recently that you'd like to pass on to other writing teams.
Write faster. Don't be married to anything. Be nice to everybody. Enjoy the
Be to
process.
everyone or be nice to everyone?
Be nice to everyone and enjoy the process. Don't be writing for that end result.
Great,
Smart.
that is really good advice, David. How about you, Grace?
I think when he said write faster, I would also say don't stop writing. And if you have a period where there's always in every artist's life, there's this period of you say, forget about it, I'm out. And then you go get it's the real job, or you go do whatever. And I think in my life, had I kept going and believed in myself as an artist, throughout, instead of taking these, times that I went totally away, I think that would have been useful. So I think I would say believe in yourself and don't quit. And the other thing I would say is find people who you can work with, who you trust and who you respect. It might not be that every day you're in love with each other, but respect and trust is the name of the game. And out of that comes that, I believe that abiding love and friendship that you end up with. It might take some time, but you have to work at that sometimes. So I'm very fortunate that I have a team of people that I trust and respect.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. And thank you both of you so much for chatting with us and for writing such a beautiful show for our Fringe project. Look forward to seeing what comes next from the two of you. I'll be really interested to find out more about your full-length show. And thanks so much. Thanks to both of you for coming and chatting with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Grace.
Bye-bye.